Welcome to another edition of the Intelligence Report. Please forgive any noises that you might hear in the background. We've got construction workers working nearby, building apartments. We want to go today and look into something that just dropped in the news that's a little bit startling, but I'm not surprised. And we're going to look at one of my old friends. I don't even know if I could call him a friend, but Billy Boy Gates. Some of you are thinking, who is Billy Boy Gates? Talking about Bill Gates. That's just what I call him. That's my pet name for him. And he has been so nice, well, until you go deep into the details to actually find out what is really going on. He has contributed $200 billion. And what for? For the health care of Africans, he says. $200 billion. To be spent on what? Well, we'll get into that in not too long. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have to look deeper at Bill Gates' background and his father and family. And I've done several videos that are up on BitChute. I know YouTube would not permit those videos because they speak about eugenics and the eugenics movement, and it's morphing into something else over the years, including Planned Parenthood and other organizations. Now, about 8 months ago, Bill Gates contributed $2.8 billion to healthcare, agriculture, and nutrition in Nigeria. Again, it makes him sound so philanthropic and that he's out doing a good job. And then what happened is shortly after that, an organization called USAID, something that is run from the United States, is audited by Elon Musk, and they find so much misappropriation of finances that they don't know what to do but to shut down a whole lot of the money that is being siphoned from the United States taxpayers. And a lot of that money is used for what I believe is black ops projects, and also money used for other nefarious purposes in other countries.
Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir. We have assisted Al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Hamzi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
But let's get back to Billy. I mean, we really do need to know about Billy. His father was a close friend of a woman called Margaret Sanger. And if you know anything about Margaret Sanger and the eugenics movement, it will startle you to really understand the agenda of Bill Gates' father and Margaret Sanger.
In 1916, Sanger opened the country's first birth control clinic. As a member of the American Eugenics Society, she advocated improving the genetic composition of humans through controlled reproduction of different races and classes. She often wrote about the issue in the journal she founded, called the Birth Control Review. In 1919, writing,
I personally believe in the sterilization of the feeble-minded, the insane, and the syphilitic. The most urgent problem today is how to limit and discourage the over-fertility of the mentally and physically defective.
Many point to a 1923 New York Times interview as proof of Sanger's racist motives, in which she referred to people as weeds, saying,
It means the release and cultivation of the better racial elements in our society, and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extirpation of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization.
In 1939, after opening another clinic in Harlem, the birth control activists launched the Negro Project.
So now that we realize that the whole agenda of Bill Gates' father is about eugenics and his affiliation with the lady Margaret Sanger. Is it a thing where we could sit down and say, you know what, that was his father? That doesn't mean that Billy Boy has anything to do with that stuff. Can we really speculate that? Because when we look at the work that Bill Gates, or the Bill Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation it was called at one point, I'm not sure if it's still called that, probably is. If we look at the work that it does, a lot of it is to do with healthcare, family planning, vaccines, and so on and so forth. So what is it that I'm trying to say? That $200 billion that is going to be given over a period of time from now, and I believe he says until 2045. If it's used for injecting people with different chemicals and different technologies that we know nothing about, is it really going to help Africa? Or is it going to aid in the depopulation program?
This equation has four factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3.
The question we need to ask ourselves is, if the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is involved in the dissemination of vaccines, helping people to acquire what they call, in quotes, food security by bringing genetically modified organisms to different countries, of the which, when I did my research, I found that Ghana has allowed certain GMOs, Monsanto GMOs, into the country that's coming through the company Bayer, and also the same in Nigeria, certain food products let in to the country. And in certain parts of the world, I believe even in the EU, they don't allow GMOs, but yet you're shipping them to Africa. For what purpose? Could it be that there's an agenda to depopulate a lot of Africa?
There's been talk of gene editing and really getting high tech with seeds. Of course, there's some controversy over that. How big of a role do you think technology and gene editing may be used to really tackle the food problem?
Yeah, what are called GMOs are done by changing the genes of the plant, and it's done in a way where there's a very thorough safety procedure, and it's pretty incredible because it reduces the amount of pesticide you need, raises productivity, can help with malnutrition by getting vitamin fortification, and so I think for Africa, this is going to make a huge difference. For Africa, this is going to make a huge difference. For Africa, this is going to make a huge difference, particularly as they face climate change, the increased productivity and resilience of the seeds, most of which will come from the new scientific techniques. So the gene editing just allows that to be done in a more precise way than it's ever been done in the past. So it'll accelerate the rate of innovation.
An opponent of big multinational corporations, especially Monsanto, to name just one, because of what you describe as their nefarious influence on agriculture. There are a number of examples. There was the BT cotton in India especially. And you said, this is not a matter of helping farmers grow their land, but actually making them dependent on those big corporations.
The entry of corporations into agriculture is so wrong because the corporations only bring poisons. Most of them have roots in Hitler's Germany, in making gases to kill people in concentration camps.
That was not their aim. Their aim was to give people enough.
No. The aim was to make chemicals that kill people. After the wars, they said, why should we stop making these chemicals? Let's say now they'll kill pests. They will give fertilizer. Fertilizers were made in the same factories that made explosives and ammunition for Hitler's Germany.
That's not the same goal.
No, the companies are the same and the processes are the same. So your rhetoric might change, but the goal does not. The materiality of a death-making chemical doesn't change when you say it's now for feeding the world. I did a book on the violence of the Green Revolution because Punjab, the most fertile land of India, was destroyed. And then when Monsanto came in as a result of globalization, because till the 90s, 90% of the seed was in farmers' hands, and the rest came from the public sector, from the government labs, the research institutions. So Monsanto came illegally, didn't take any approval, with the promise that they would increase farmers' incomes and have this magical technology to control pests. Well, the bollworm is now resistant, farmers are in debt, farmers are committing suicide, the area's been ruined, the pollinators are gone. There's no pollination. The groundwater's gone. So there's nothing about the ecosystem. So I save seeds. We brought organic cotton seeds back. We work with the Gandhi ashrams on hand spinning and hand weaving of this organic cotton. The economy in the villages where we work has jumped tenfold because now the wealth is staying in the village rather than being siphoned off as Monsanto's profit. And I read a new study that says because we've saved seeds, we brought local seeds that can be saved back into the economy. Monsanto has lost 11 million.
Et le commandant d'Auschwitz, correspondante présentée au procès de Nuremberg. Nous vous serions reconnaissants, monsieur, de bien vouloir mettre à notre disposition un certain nombre de femmes en vue d'expériences que nous avons l'intention d'effectuer avec un nouveau narcotique. Après l'offre faite par le commandant Auschwitz, la firme Bayer écrit à nouveau. Le prix de 200 marks pour une femme nous paraît exagéré. Nous n'offrons pas plus de 170 marks par tête. Si vous êtes d'accord, nous viendrons les chercher. Nous avons besoin de 150 femmes environ. L'entreprise ayant reçu les femmes demandées, écrit à nouveau au commandant du camp. Nous avons reçu l'envoi de 150 femmes. Bien qu'elles soient dans un état de dépérissement, nous considérons qu'elles conviennent. Nous vous informerons au cours des expériences. Quelque temps plus tard, la firme Bayer écrit à nouveau. Les expériences sont faites, toutes les personnes sont mortes. Nous nous adresserons prochainement à vous pour un nouvel envoi.
If you look at the statistics of the which I've looked, and you can see for yourself, even right here from this table, Africans are having children at a rate of about 3 times more than Caucasians in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, and in the United States. This is not a racial issue that we're tackling right here. There is a global depopulation agenda. And the reason for that is simply this. Those that are called the elite have said that the people on the planet are useless eaters. They have already decided where the world is going. And so the rise of AI and robotics and all of these different technologies that are coming to the fore is going to mean that there is going to be a need for less people on the planet. In fact, King Charles' father, before he passed away, he wrote a book, a children's book, and he said he was interviewed and he was asked what the problem is on the planet. And you know, he turns around and says, to the person interviewing him, don't you know? But he said it's population.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
And so we can see clearly that there's an agenda on that level. Why? Because they believe in the writings of Thomas Malthus, and there are also other things that they believe in that are highly satanic. And so it gives credence to them to depopulate the world using all manner of different measures. And so when we see the push for the alphabet letters starting with L, is it G? And anyway, what you know where I'm trying to go. When we see the push for that, the reason for the push for that is if you are in a relationship that does not produce children, then you're not populating the planet. This is why this is pushed. It's not pushed because they necessarily like those people. It is pushed because when you're doing that, you're not increasing the population. Wow. And so we need to get ready, because from now until 2045, there is that agenda. The money is no longer there coming through US aid, and so Billy Boy, to make sure that the agenda is carried out, to continue to run with the baton that was passed on to him by his father, another eugenicist, Billy Boy has fallen on his sword and given over most of his money, it said in quotes, $200 billion, with an agenda to flood Africa with all manner of things that we have no idea about. And some of the puppets that are sitting in office, and yes, I said puppets because you have to be a puppet to not really do your research and accept this stuff. Some of the puppets accepting this money will have to answer to the Most High for those that end up passing away as a result of this type of tomfoolery. Pray for the continent and those of us that are living here, because times have changed and these are days of danger. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Intelligence Report. Bless you. Bye for now.